I'm going to welcome everyone and Happy New Year. I call the Monday, January 8th, 2024 regular meeting to order at 7:02. And we'll start with the election of officers to the Board of Education. That includes the board chairperson and the board's vice chair/secretary. So we'll begin with the election of our Board of Education chairperson. I'm going to open the floor to accept nominations for the chairperson of the Farmington Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Bill Becker for the position of chair of the Board of Education.
Second.
Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Is there time for comments to this? Yes. I'm Angela Cianci. I'm a newly elected member of the Board of Ed. I've been thinking about this for a while and have been conflicted on how I should proceed when this vote came. I met with many of you over the last several weeks to try to get to know you all better. I want to bridge gaps, I want to work together, and I wanted to hit the ground running starting on day one. I did meet with Bill, and I expressed many ideas and concerns to Bill during our meeting, and I truly believe he listened and wants to collaborate with all members of the board moving forward. In that regard, I do plan to vote yes to this motion so that we can get started on the right track. That said, I would like to speak for a moment on why I've been struggling with this vote since the November election, regardless of who the chair nominee was. The personal attacks leveled on my Republican running mates and myself this election cycle crossed the line. While the attacks grouped all Republican candidates as bigots and a threat to Farmington if elected, the attacks had a specific Board of Ed flavor and were fundamentally completely baseless. I would like to set the tone immediately that creating actual lies and turning them into mailer content and social media posts is unacceptable, especially when funded by the Farmington Democratic Town Committee and promoted by fellow members. On whatever side you sit on, we are all neighbors and volunteers, and our children are subjected to the words we say and the actions we take. My motive for running has and always will be to create the best educational experience in this district for our kids and families. I want Bill to be successful, and I want us all to be successful. I plan to vote for Bill, and I wish him all the best. I hope this is the last time I have to bring up the 2023 election, and I hope we can all move forward in a productive and unifying manner. That's it.
I have a comment, please. Bill has been a public servant and a volunteer in our community for over 20 years, and he has been a member of the Board of Education since 2009. With 15 years of experience on the board, he has a wealth of institutional knowledge that will shape and direct his leadership and be a resource to the board members in their decision making. During his time on the board, he has demonstrated a passion to serve and advocate for students, families, faculty, and staff. And I trust that as chair, he will partner with the superintendent to further the priorities of the district with a commitment to excellence and continuous improvement in all areas. As my colleague on the board for the past 6 years, Bill has been a mentor and a friend. I have found Bill to be a good listener who is open to hearing different viewpoints, open to discussion, and receptive to feedback. As the chair, I know Bill will work to facilitate a collaborative and respectful board where all voices are heard at the table, and as a spokesperson, he will represent this board with distinction.
Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Given the nomination, I will read the motion for the election of the Board of Education's chairperson. I already have a first and a second to appoint Bill Becker as Board of Education chairperson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It is unanimous vote. Congratulations, Bill. Now you get the honor of the gavel.
So this is the first time in a very long time I've actually been able to see everybody at the meeting. Because everybody who's come to the meeting for the last, I don't know how many years, has seen the back of my head. Now, it's not a bad-looking back, but it is the back. Okay. So before we proceed, I just want to say a couple of quick things. I'll speak more during the report of the board chair. I just want to say a couple of things real quick, though. I'm honored and grateful to be supported by all of you unanimously to sit in this spot. I sit in a spot that's been held by countless Farmington public servants who have given their time, effort, and energy to the students of the children of Farmington. So I take that responsibility very seriously, and I take the trust that you've placed in me very seriously. I want to thank each and every one of you for stepping up and volunteering. I know many of you have felt a calling to public service and have a passion for public education. Towns in Connecticut have two important roles: keeping our citizens safe and teaching our children. This is a role that is critical to the life of our community, and I thank you for all being a part of that. I have more to say during the report of the board chair, but I would be remiss without also thanking my family, whose love and support and sacrifice over the past 15 years has allowed me the opportunity to participate in public service in Farmington, and I'm grateful that my wife is here tonight. I know we have a busy meeting tonight, so let's get to work, and I would ask for a motion to appoint vice chair.
I move to nominate Andrea Sabinski for Vice Chair of the Farmington Board of Education.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
If I
Any
could-
discussion?
If I could say a few words.
Please.
So I had to ask Andrea how long we've known each other tonight, which was a bit embarrassing. I knew it was at least 10 years. It's been 14 since our children went together to school together at Noah Wallace. Andrea, upon moving to Farmington and having her children attend that school, immediately got involved with the school and PTO activities, and before too long became a PTO leader. She's worked incredibly hard ever since. She's been an advocate for our schools ever since her time at Noah Wallace, through the PTO, through Farmington Future, during budget time. I know she takes her role here at the board very seriously, and she's extremely dedicated to the work of the board. She's intelligent, thoughtful, even-tempered, bipartisan, and an excellent listener. I'm proud to know her, and I know she will continue to be an excellent vice chair of this board.
Any other comments or discussion? Get a motion to close nominations, please.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of closing nominations, please stay by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay. Nominations are closed. I think it's time to have a motion to appoint Andrea Sabinski to the position of Vice Chair of the Farmington Board of Education. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous. Congratulations, Andrea. All right, with that being said, let's get into the, welcome everyone. Yes, this is the slide that we put together here. We can all read that slide, and then I think it's time to call the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item on our agenda, item 4 is recognition. Happy to announce and recognize Nicole Vibert as our 2024 Connecticut Association of Schools Assistant Principal of the Year. Kathy?
Yeah, so it's my honor to ask Nicole to come up and sit right here. I'll say a few words about Nicole. She is our Assistant Principal of the Year for Connecticut, so it's such an honor. I know for Nicole and her family, but it's an honor for her Farmington family as well. Westwood's faculty, staff, students, and families, and the whole district. It just brought us all such joy to celebrate you and celebrate this recognition. Nicole has been an assistant principal here in Farmington for over 6 years and serves on numerous school-based and district-level committees. She is student-centered and highly accomplished. She also is a graduate of the Farmington Public Schools, so that's a point of pride for all of us to see someone who's been through our school system, now lives here in Farmington, works in Farmington, leads in Farmington, and her children go to our schools. Nicole works closely with all members of the Westwood school community to create the conditions for students to thrive each day, academically and when it comes to their own well-being. She champions family partnerships, student leadership, and deep learning. She's a leader who promotes high trust, high engagement, and high expectations in all aspects of her role as assistant principal. As a strong and expert instructional leader, she promotes learning experiences that reflect high levels of student engagement, curiosity, real-world impact, and joy in learning. As an example, she led efforts to create an outdoor classroom at Westwoods, providing a space to engage in cross-curricular learning experiences that have meaning and value to all learners. I've been out in that space. I've been with students as they're learning science concepts, and really it is cross-curricular. And there's just something calming about being out in the woods and learning together. It's just an example of the high academics with a focus on well-being. In her role as a district-wide family school liaison, Nicole's collaborative work with families strengthens family-school partnerships at Westwoods and throughout our school district. Her equity-focused leadership, commitment to excellence, and deep care for all members of the Westwoods school community have led to impressive outcomes for our students and a positive school culture. As a proud lifelong resident and graduate, Nicole loves our schools and our community, and I've heard her say that many times in the time we've worked together. We deeply appreciate your expertise and dedication, and we join you and your family in celebrating your hard work, leadership, and commitment to the Farmington Public Schools. Congratulations. You've made us very proud, Nicole.
I opened it up to comment from any of the members. Anybody have anything they'd like to add or say?
Nicole, we haven't really worked together or even experienced the parent relationship too much because I believe when my boys were going through Westwoods, it was COVID time. So I was a little bit more removed than I would normally be as a parent. But I just want to congratulate you on this recognition. And as a Farmington Public School parent and board member, just let you know how appreciative I am of your hard work and dedication in this district. So congrats.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Hi. I actually got to experience Nicole as a parent there with a son who has very much thrived at Westwoods and had very positive experiences there at a time which was very difficult for us. And so I just want to thank you for the attention that not only were you very responsive to my questions and always made yourself available, but you were also very responsive to my son's needs. And just Westwoods in general was, the culture there was very responsive to the needs of my son. So I very much believe strongly that that is because of leadership. And so thank you so much for everything that you did while my son was there. I have one more coming, so. You had one before. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I would just add, Nicole, just so happy for you. This is great recognition. I don't know how you balance it all between yourself and Keith, your kids, work, all of it. You've done an amazing job, and the recognition is well deserved, so congratulations.
Yeah, my daughter's a sixth grader at Westwoods currently. You guys are doing a fantastic job, Dr. Bohr. So congratulations on a wonderful recognition.
Thank
Okay. Well, I'll finish up by quoting my predecessor, who, this all happened kind of before we were seated, right? So she had prepared some remarks that I'm going to basically steal because they're true. On behalf of the Board of Education, I am pleased and proud to congratulate you. Oh, man. Where'd it go? Make sure I have it. On this prestigious recognition. Beyond your role as an outstanding assistant principal at Westwoods Upper Elementary, you're also a part of the fabric of our community. We see you at school and at community events in the evenings and on the weekends. You are a champion for the Farmington schools and it's in our community. And it is evident that this deep commitment is foundational to your work with students, families, colleagues, and all members of the Farmington School District. This is a very meaningful recognition for both the Farmington Public Schools and our community. And I just want to congratulate you on receiving this honor. This is really special for you, and it also makes us look good, too. So thank you very much. Congratulations.
May I invite myself to speak?
Please, please.
I've let Kathy and Katie down at a couple of opportunities to, I think, say something articulately, so I did prepare this time. I did want to say, first of all, that it's an honor to be here this evening, and I want to recognize that this is School Board Appreciation Month. I know volunteering time as part of a community board, such as a school board, is a tremendous and admirable undertaking, and I'm very appreciative of your time and your support. I also want to take this opportunity to thank those who have supported me during my tenure in Farmington. Under Kathy's leadership, I have always felt empowered to take on any and all projects that I feel passionate about. Kathy's vision and focus on coherence, as well as her emphasis on relationships and collaborative problem solving, create rewarding opportunities for professional growth. Additionally, this recognition would not be possible without my lead learner, the principal of Westwoods, Katie Bloor. Katie is a cheerleader, a mentor, and truly a friend. And I am so grateful for her. She models all of the leadership traits that I aspire to, and I am thankful to learn from her every day. The faculty and staff are truly one of a kind at Westwoods. I have never been a part of a school community that is so exceptional. The educators at Westwoods care deeply about each other and about their students, and they are committed to continuous improvement in pursuit of excellence. I am deeply grateful to them for allowing me to work alongside them every day. Finally, I would like to thank my family, my parents who instilled in me a work ethic and a love of learning, my husband Keith, who is a source of strength and who models love of community and service, and my children, Jake, Jordy, and Emmy, who are asleep right now, I hope. But when things get tough, remind me of my purpose. There is no greater professional learning experience than becoming a mother. I do say it to every audience that I am ever put in front of. I grew up in this community, and if you look back at my 5th grade yearbook, or whatever Naviance was called in 2001, you will see that the plan was always to return to Farmington as an educator. I was honored in 2018 with that opportunity, and I am honored again now to receive this recognition. I spoke with our 5th graders who were recently onboarded as the new Wildcat Pack the other day, and we spoke about what it means to be humble. This recognition is truly humbling. The success of our district is thanks to hundreds of educators and thousands of students, and to receive this award is to recognize the work of every individual in our community. I am so proud of our town and of our school. Thank you very much for recognizing this achievement this evening.
Next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the December 4th Board of Education regular meeting. Motion?
Motion to approve the December 4th, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting minutes as presented.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Anybody want to add, revise, or make any comments to anything that's in the meetings, the minutes of the meeting? Okay. Right then. All in favor of approving the December 4th, 2023 BOE regular meeting minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I would say those that were not on the Board of Ed probably should have abstained from that. So right, I would suggest, just for the record to be clear. Okay, and the motion has been approved. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of the superintendent's report. Thank God, Kathy, your turn.
So there is a link in the agenda to our Director of Technology, Matt Ross's video that he does every year that provides a preliminary budget presentation. It gives you a preview of what you'll see in February when the full budget is presented. We try to do these presentations just so you are given some of the presentations of items that might take a long time to go through during our full day budget meeting. So we try to build it along the way, and it works out really well because it gives you the time and space to really think about each of these presentations. We also, because it was on the agenda, it's also accessible to our community. And Matt is here to answer any questions that you might have related to our preliminary technology budget for the 2024-2025 year. So Matt.
Yep. Hi, everybody. So I figured I'd start off with kind of the Cliff Notes version. You can watch the video. It's not very long. There are the major drivers of this year's increases are just normal contractual license increases in an average of 3 to 5%, which is pretty standard. Cybersecurity initiatives, which continue, but the bulk of this year's increase is as a result of the restoration of ESSER funding that we've been kind of pushing things over the past couple of years slowly. We did kind of back off over the 3-year course, but roughly $75,000 of the just under $100,000 increase in the technology lines is attributable to restoration of funding that had been offset by ESSER funding. Predominantly Chromebooks and curriculum support software, which fall directly within the realm of what ESSER was intended to do. As I said, the overall increase is just under $100,000. And that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. There's not much more in terms of detail. There was a question that was brought up today regarding the operational accounts. In one part of the presentation, it lists a dollar figure. In another part of the presentation, it lists a dollar figure that is $25 off. The way that we do budgeting is based on object code, but some of the reports that I report out to annually don't necessarily include all of the lines within a particular object code. So the $25 difference is just a historical report that doesn't include a particular line that's $25 off. So.
We're gonna make you put the $25 in, Matt.
Yep. No. It's a savings of 25. It's a savings.
Okay. We'll give you $25 for savings.
Right.
That's right.
We've already found a
Right.
savings.
Savings.
Scott's very proud.
So I'll open it up for any questions. I know you guys got the presentation. It's a lot, certainly, and this is really an opportunity. If you have some like top line type questions, it's a good time for that now. But also invite you, if you have any questions after you review the videos, you can send them to me and we can get it over to Matt and have them prepared for when we meet in February. Obviously, this is really, the February meeting when we do our budget is really the opportunity to drill into it a little bit more. There'll be a more formal presentation at that point. This, along with what's coming down in the next couple of agenda items, are kind of an artifact of a time when we didn't get this information until the Saturday meeting. And these are really detailed reports, and there's a lot to them. And we found, and Kathy was correct in realizing that we needed to have that information, plenty of time ahead of time, so that when we're in the budget discussion, you have this information and can ask authoritative questions, meaningful questions, and understand where Matt's coming from. So when you're voting on it, which is a big chunk of our budget, you understand why you're doing it, as opposed to seeing it on a Saturday morning and asking you to vote on it without having an opportunity, kind of like sight unseen. Thanks, Matt. There you go. Any questions of Matt at this point?
I have some questions.
Okay, sure.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the whole ESSER component here, and I'm sure we're going to learn more about that as we get into the budget. Is there a breakdown, like does that tail off? So it's cut off now, like we don't have any more ESSER dollars this year? Or
As of the end of the summer of 2024, the ESSER funds are gone.
Okay.
So we received several different grants during COVID. This is one of those grants, and it was there to try to provide districts with funding during a very challenging time where we had increased cost, whether it was inflation or it had to do with health and safety and supplies, definitely technology, because as you remember, we went right to one-to-one, and students were at a period of time all home with Chromebooks, and then we went to some hybrid. So we needed to scale up very quickly, and those funds helped. But that we were allowed to keep those funds until the summer of 2024, which we're on track to spend all of the funds. We're not giving any back. But we, because of the increase in technology, we had funding for technology, and then when our budget was reduced last year, we still needed that technology, so we put it on ESSER, the grant, because we still had time, and we just shifted some things around.
Right.
So that's why you see now that money coming back onto an operating budget that was on a grant
Right.
is now moved towards
We'll be
operating.
able to see like a comprehensive, where all the ESSER funding went. So we'll be able to see like how much of it went to this component. I'm sure it went to other places as well. And then obviously we have to mitigate that this year.
Yeah, so we, on our website, we have to provide, a visual of where the money went, what were those buckets. We don't put a dollar amount there, but we certainly have that documentation. We have to report to the state pretty regularly when it comes to how we're spending that money down. So we have all of that.
Okay, awesome. And then my last question was, do we have a breakdown of this as it applies through each level of the schooling, so like K through 12? And then also, I'm pro technology, pro software, I'm pro everything, just to be clear. But I think there does reach a saturation point sometimes with software and licensing. So I was wondering if we ever did like a usage report that compared of these softwares that we use or the logins that we have, like how often are they actually utilized throughout the different grade levels, just to see, and the cost associated with each of them, just to see like what the value is that we're getting for each of the licensings, because I know that those add a significant amount to part of this number.
So I'll answer the second question first, and then I need a little bit more clarification on the first part. So we annually review our software usage. Most of our software is licensed based on a total student count. So you could make the division out that it's not necessarily used across all grade levels. But we do annually. I sit with the integration specialists, and we look at it from a couple of perspectives. One being usage, but also really the purpose or the value that it has. Even if it's used by a small number of students, there may be a specialized need for it. And that's the reason why even this year, it's roughly $100,000 in increase, $75,000 of that being ESSER. So only $25,000 is regular. It can be attributed to regular increases. We've actually called some of the software, some of the applications out, which ultimately could have resulted in a higher increase. So we do look at those numbers on an annual basis. And then the first question you asked had to do, I think, with a breakdown K-12. So we don't necessarily, I don't typically break it down by grade level. It is sometimes done in bands. So I'll look at things K4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. I've structured a budgetary model that based on who the population is that a particular technology serves, where it actually gets budgeted. So if a particular software application gets used across the entire district, it's going to show up in a district level technology line. If it's something that's only used at the middle school, it's going to show up at a school-based line. And if it's only used to support a particular subject area, it's actually in that subject area supply or text line. Whether it's digital or a paper text, it's still there to support the curriculum. And that helps keep that relationship, that conversation going with our department leaders to ensure that, hey, is this something that you really need, as they're going through their budgeting process as well. We do have some products that get split across. If they're K4, they get divided out amongst the K4 schools. Again, depending on what the cost structure is, if it's a per pupil or if it's just a straight up count, we will sometimes split it out, the cost share, based on the student population or the intended student population. Sometimes we just divide it by 4. It all depends on the particular cost model that vendor has. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's a cut and dry, like everything's broken out, but we do have a budgeting model for particular software applications. And then on the Chromebook side, our refresh cycle is at the K4 level, and then again, when students move from grade 4 to grade 5, and then from grade 8 to grade 9, and it's typically a 4-year cycle. This year's a little slightly different. We did pull back over the past year on a one-to-one in K1 and 2. They have moved back to a cart model, so they're just not bringing them home. So the refresh is going to look slightly different, but the total number of devices that we have to purchase each year just to keep our inventory in a healthy condition stays the same.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. All set?
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions of Matt?
I just, I had the question of why shifting back to the K through 2 Chromebooks in the cart-based model, and then also my second question, you used to give the Chromebooks to 1st, 5th, and 9th, so they'd have them for 4 years. So now it's going to be 3, 5, and 9. So what happens to the 3rd grader's Chromebook? How long do they keep it, or is that recycled back into K through 2?
Recycle back into K2, yeah. So I'm still trying to figure out that sweet spot for where we're going to deploy the new batch based on wear and tear. So what we should see is a lot less wear and tear at those younger grade levels. We worked closely, we got a lot of feedback from the classroom teachers about the students bringing the devices back and forth. We also got some parent feedback as well as to whether or not the students really needed to have ready access to it at those grade levels. At this point, we've pulled back. It seems to work. We always have the option of a student bringing a device home, but at this point, they stay in the classroom unless there's a need to do that. Grade 2 was kind of a break point. We want the students to be comfortable on the machine. So that's where we may see students bringing it home a little more often, but not necessarily every day.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All set. Thanks, Matt. And to their new colleagues, you will find Matt is probably one of the most knowledgeable individuals in the field of school technology and budgeting in the state of Connecticut, if not the United States.
I agree.
The MacGyver of technology.
And he is like a MacGyver, absolutely. Okay.
All right. Next one?
Yep.
Okay. So the 2022-2023 Profile and Performance Report is a state of Connecticut report. It's a State Department of Education report. We have already provided the board, for those who weren't here in the fall, the board did see our results and outcomes packet, which provides all the results from the 2022-2023 year by school, given the goals that each school set. We also provided our state assessment data to the Board of Education in the fall, and the board approved the town council accountability annual report that we provide to them. So this is the last report when it comes to outcomes for 22-23. And our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Verona Rusek, will come up and provide a quick overview of the 2022-2023 Profile and Performance Report from the state of Connecticut. It provides a variety of indicators related to the data that is gathered by the Connecticut State Department of Education. And it's definitely something that gives everyone a nice overview of all of that data. It's something that we also have on our website, so anyone can access those reports, not only from the 22-23 school year, but many years prior to that. So we keep that on our website for the community's information.
I wasn't sure if you had the whole report in the packet. You do? Okay, I wasn't sure, so I figured I'd make sure I had a copy of it, because I thought it'd be useful to just talk through it just a little bit. And Kathy's right. I think I could just reiterate everything that she said about how this is produced by the state of Connecticut. All the data comes from the data that we provide to them. So through our Power School and through our hiring and all that, they ask for certain sets of data that then end up in these reports. it all ends up in a consistent format so that every school district and every school also, so each school and school district, has a similar format with all of these results. So it's highly sort of comparable, and it's a historical record over time as well. So it's a historical record over time, and you can see what other, other districts or schools, how they're doing on these particular indicators. In fact, one of the documents the state has on their website that's associated with this website, which, by the way, everything's on something called edsite.ct.gov. That's where you can find all of these results. And it's probably great that they put this out now. This generally has been coming out a lot later than now. They put this out just towards the end of November, but for the past several years, it hasn't really come out until earliest was February, and then before that, it was even later. But what's nice about having it now is that, as you're gearing up even for budget time and all of that, there might be some interesting, so you're looking for a comparison or you want to know something about a different district, this is where you would look. All of the reports and all the historical reports are on edsite.ct.gov. And what I was going to say before is that the website has on it using accountability results to guide improvement. And that's really what the state is saying is the purpose of putting these reports together. It's so that you are getting some sort of indication about how you're doing on various indicators, which we already know internally. We have all this data, but to see it in this one format, they want us to be using it for improvement, and we do. We look at this data, and as Kathy said, this is sort of the culmination of lots of different reports that have reviewed, in general, the same kinds of information. This is just now all in one place, and you can compare to other districts. Generally, this report is broken out into 4 parts that you can see here. Student data is one of them. Then I'll take each one and just say a few mouthfuls about each one. So student data, then educator data, then instruction and resources, and then performance and accountability. So those are like the 4 main categories of what this report highlights. Student data, there we're talking about student demographics, things like English learner population, for example, number of students who participate in free or reduced lunch programming over time. You get it for that 1 year, but basically you can see it over time as well. Absenteeism, and then suspension and expulsion rates. So those are some of the indicators that you would see in there. So a couple of things that I would just highlight for you, just so that you only have this year's report in front of you, but I had the advantage of being able to look at several years of reports and sort of offer some ideas of what sort of we're paying attention to in each of the categories. So here I would just say that our enrollment since the prior year has gone up slightly. Not a huge amount, but we're certainly not one of these districts where you might have read it even in the paper today, declining enrollment, they're consolidating schools. That is not our population. That is not us. So if you see those headlines, this is where you would look for that information, like what districts are doing that and which districts are not doing that. We are not one of the districts where that is occurring. Our diversity continues to increase over time. So you would see that in the report there. And as you know, because I was recently at maybe it was the last board meeting or the one before, our EL population continues to grow over time. And I would say the eligible for free reduced meals actually decreased now post-COVID. So not a ton. We're talking from 17% to 16% or something like that. But that is something that you would see in this report, for example. Another, I think, upswing to post-COVID time is our chronic absenteeism is down as well. So we made some improvements there, and we've certainly concentrated on it too. So that combination of, sort of the timing and the efforts that we've put in have certainly shown in the data there. Our students with disabilities percentage continues to rise, but not on par with the state average. So while we went up slightly, the state went up in terms of percentage of special education a little more than we did. Our suspension and expulsion rate was about the same, but it's very low. And so those are the kinds of things that you would see in the student data category. So I'll move on to educator data. There you can see staffing levels by assignment, demographic information of teachers, there I would just say that our FTEs have been pretty stable from the year before. Diversity is something that, again, that's another one of those reports that I'm sure that you hear from, that was something that Kim would generally report on. We certainly have very robust plans on how to attract, hire, and retain a diverse talent pool. But it's not a very diverse pool in the state of Connecticut to begin with. So you would see there also state data in terms of this. Really 90% of teachers in Connecticut are white, are Caucasian. And that was last year, and then, well, the year before, and then this data shows that it's 89%. So it went from 90% to 89%. So that certainly indicates, a change, but very, very slight. And that's sort of the pool that we're also drawing from. So despite our best efforts for, a more diverse talent pool, it's been challenging, but we've also made some small shifts sort of at the same level as what I just described with the state. The next section then, so educator data, you can see that's just really those two boxes. It's not very long, but really useful data that we certainly look at. Then the next section, instruction and resources. So this is where you would see total number. This is really where you're looking at educational expenditures. How much are, districts spending on different categories. So again, you can compare different school districts, look at ours over time. An interesting point there, in 2020, the year 2020 to 2021, our average spending per student was $400 under the state average, and actually the last year that they reported on, the 2022-2023, we were actually $800 below the state average. So even though, I was fortunate to be able to report about our great results that we've had, we were able to do that despite the fact that we're also spending less per pupil over time there too. And so those are the kinds of things that you would see there. We had a huge increase big increase, maybe not huge, but big increase in participation in college and career readiness courses. And this is due to also the wider offerings that we have in that category. And those are the kinds of things that you'll see when, we talk about developing new courses, you would see it there, or when we're talking about new courses that are being added to the program of studies, for example, you would see that in reports there, but that has increased over time. I would say in this category, instruction resources, something to keep an eye on for us would be the percentage of time that our students with special needs spend with non-disabled peers. So that would be one category. As I've described, sort of a positive shift in all the categories we're talking about, that's one that I would think that we would keep an eye on. And then in the final category is performance and accountability. And this really is, I think most of the things here, most of the numbers are tied to things that we've all reported on. But one of the nice things about what the state tried to do for the state accountability measure is not just focus on smarter balanced. They said, let's try to figure out a system that sort of gives every school district and every school some credit for sort of a well-rounded education. So let's not just concentrate only on scores. So what they concentrate on was, well, one of them is the scores, but then it's also growth on the scores. And not only growth of the whole population, but the growth of a high needs population as well. So you get a certain amount of points for all of those categories. Also, they said, let's concentrate too on things like how much access do students have to the arts? How much access do they have and how many students participate in college level courses, for example. Let's also put in there some results related to physical wellness and how students are doing on different physical, physical activities, which happen to be, things like, the mile run, or that thing that I cannot do, the sit and reach, is one of them. You get a certain number of points as well. And so then what the state does is tallies up all these points. So they'll say there's this many points available in this category. We'd like you to get this amount of 75%, for example. We want 75% of students to do this. And if you get that, you'll get all 50 points or all 100 points. Or if you don't get there, you're going to get a percentage of the points. Then they tally up all the points that your school district got on all of these indicators that I just described and divided by the number of points available. So for a district like ours, we have about 1,400, we have exactly 1,450 points available, and we ended up with 84.5% of them. To put that in perspective, the district that got the very highest got 87% of all their points. So they're not looking, this is not like sort of something where, 100 points, whether that's even doable, I'm not sure, but nobody certainly has approached that. 87% seems to be sort of the bar of where everyone got. So you can imagine that 84.5% puts us near the top of the state. And in fact, we are 8th in the entire state of all districts. Most of them being, DIRG A schools, so we're considered a DIRG B school, but yet in the very top of the state for those, for the percentage of points that we achieve on this accountability measure. So it's a great achievement. And then I also want to just highlight that all 4 of our K-4 schools are all schools of distinction. All 4 of them achieve that recognition for various reasons. So you can get it because of your overall achievement, you can get it because of growth of your overall population, you can get it for growth of your high needs population. So all of our schools got it for one or more of those reasons. And what's interesting, they take all the schools who are eligible for this distinction and then rank them based on the number of points that they got, percentage of points that they got, and they only have 10%, only 10% of the schools get this designation. So all 4 of our K-4 elementary schools were schools of distinction based on the 2022-23 data. So great achievement there as well. So again, I think it's just a treasure trove of information. Anytime so I wanted to come to describe it. I also wanted, I always want the community to know that that's there. It's all online on our website, and it's all online at EdSite. And I think it's important. I think that sometimes there's also sort of a, people want to rely on, you get like a Facebook post, and it's like theniche.com, and like it ranks your school district this way, and it's a lot of those things are based on the number of clicks it gets and things like that, or they're looking for clicks. The best way to find out how our school is doing is this report. This is the way that you find out based on several indicators. It's not just it's not just a one indicator kind of way of looking at it, but I think that the designers of that accountability really tried to take a lot of things into account, say how can we fairly sort of score lots of different schools, and also make sure it's not only relying on the test. What are some other indicators we could look at? And so it's just it's a pretty decent measure, and we certainly look at it for seeing how other schools are performing, and then also for improving our own practices over time. So again, just wanted to make it clear to you what that report is, that it's public, and just give you an indication that all the results that we see are pretty strong in this report for the 22-23 school year.
I would just maybe add a little bit before I invite questions to the new members. So Veronica makes a presentation in the fall with the data that's behind this report. It's at that point we have, and Kim also speaks to about it as well. And it's that point in time where you can really drill and ask a lot of questions about some of the things that Veronica's just kind of reported out on. There's a lot of information here, but I'm happy to open it up for any questions anyone may have for Veronica at this time. again, this is something that we work on every year. You'll have more than enough time to comment on this and ask questions about it, as you go through your terms of service, for sure. Any questions? Erica?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
And thank you, Bill, for that added information about details that in the fall we get to see a lot more of the deaggregated data, I'm assuming. And because this is obviously the standard template for the ed site, and I'm very familiar with it. Couple questions, then I think this would be maybe towards the fall when we get that report from you, but areas of interest for myself is the chronic absenteeism, suspension, expulsion data. And in looking at, and I understand that the asterisk is the compressed data specifically for the female population because it may seem that the number must be low, and it's to protect the confidentiality of those students, which I totally understand. But it does seem, I'm not, when we get into those conversations in the future or in the fall, how low is that number and why such a significant differences between the male and female students of chronic absenteeism, and what strategies is maybe the district trying to explore on, say, gender responsive strategies to engage male students, and staffing in general for that in the community, parents and so forth, about increased attendance for the male population. But it does seem quite a significant difference there, especially if you did an asterisk to compress the data. The other area on that particular column there, the suspension and expulsion, where it has so those two are two significant situations to me, and suspension versus an expulsion. So are those based off of this this table here that is compressed? Is that correct? Those are two being counted as the same there. And so
Yes,
at some point,
together.
okay, together. So I'm assuming in the future we'll be able to see what the breakdown is of that for suspension versus expulsion, maybe? I don't know
But
if
as
you
a
do.
board member,
As a board member, you are part of the hearing for
Yeah, no, I
expulsion.
understand that, yeah.
But anything that's suppressed in here, we have to suppress.
Yes, no,
at
I
the
understand.
district level.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times you'll see this data, but I wouldn't be able to give you the data because again, it's suppressed
Okay.
due to what you said, the once it gets to a certain number, it can be identifiable, and we cannot share any information about students that might be identifiable.
and the only thing I'll say, I noticed what you said too, except that it's very strange. Do you know that last year, in the report last year for the whole report, they suppressed the entire, and I'm not sure why, all of our females. We had an asterisk for the 2,000 female, for some reason. We had an asterisk there, and actually, if you look at, see the female, and it shows like a rate, and then male, it says 9.9,
Yeah.
but then for the overall district, it says 10%. So my guess is that the female chronic absentee rate is probably actually the same as male, but for some reason, it has an asterisk, and I don't know why. And like I said, it was curious, because last year, the October 1st, 2021 enrollment I have in front of me, for all the females, count, asterisk, and it's got to be 2,000 people, 2,000 or so, and then percent of total, percentage, asterisk, and it had to be 40,
So it could be some kind of glitch.
49%. So it's some sort
Like
of
a glitch
in
in
their
the report.
system. So, I appreciate the question because I'm glad you're looking at it to that level of specificity, but I don't have an explanation for why that asterisk is there. So, but I don't know that it's actually a difference in the data between the males and the females. And I will just point out that when I said before that the 10% is an improvement, last year 13%. So our chronic absenteeism was 13%, and now it's 10. So in 1 year, a 3% decline in the chronic absenteeism, which is significant.
On the breakdown of,
So let Erica, are you done?
Sorry.
Erica has
Yeah,
the
go
floor, and then I'll pass it along, for sure.
Sorry, two more things. I also see here the number of students qualified as truant under the state statute. So that states, obviously, the state statute has changed significantly under for truancy, that 406. I guess it would, in the future, I'd like to see the differences, how we're doing in that too. That all applies to, at some point, layering of chronic absenteeism and so forth. And then lastly, I I believe the State Department of Ed also releases on Ed's site every February a report on school discipline and how we're
Yes.
how we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that something that this kind of goes into this?
That's what
And
we-
as that's what this is.
Yeah,
Is this what?
it's on the website.
Yeah.
We don't do an actual report on it,
Yeah.
but it's there. It's something that we look at. We do analysis. Pretty regularly, the DLC is looking at suspension data. We look at it through all the indicators that you see here, because we want to make sure that we're not waiting till the end of the year, but every month, reviewing that data, looking at it through an equity lens, making sure that we're paying attention to all of these different indicators. And if we are seeing any trends, we're putting things in place, whether we have restorative practices that we use the ruler program, but we're also always seeking out, different ways for students to feel connected to the school, because often that can be, a root cause for students who might be, not regulating behaviors, whatever it might be. It could have to do with not feeling connected, not feeling that belonging. So there's a lot of different, and you'll see it sometimes in the deeper learning updates, a lot of different programming that we have in district. And especially those students who we are seeing that they're showing a pattern, that we want to really support them and make sure that they have a trusted adult in the district that they're connected to, and that they feel, that they have those relationships within the district. But Erica, it's a great topic, because it's something that we spend a lot of time on. And, at times you're going to see budget items that reflect that focus. And, we share that to, let the board know that there's data to support this focus, and that's why we're putting, say, additional funding in one or two areas to try to mitigate against some of those, exclusions from school.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nadine?
I was just going to kind of comment to Erica in the sense, I'm interested because in the overall performance at the district level, it is asterisk for the females versus the males, but then as you go into the actual documents online, it is actually showing the female number.
Right.
And then it's asterisk, so like, I guess that is, I think you have a very valid point, is why is some of it
Yeah.
not shown? And
I'm not sure why, because you're right, usually they suppress that data
Each
when
school
there's
shows a
there's very
breakdown.
few students, so usually it's under a cohort of 40.
Yeah.
It's under 40 usually, but that is not my guess of what that would be, especially since the average is 10%, the male is 9.9, so the female has to be somewhere around that 10.1.
All set, Nadine?
Yep.
Okay. Martin?
Nadine hit it. That's exactly what I was going to point out too, is that it's broken down on the individual schools.
We can actually ask the state.
I know, we should.
We will.
I am
You're
co-chair of
rolling it
assessment
up.
and accountability for this.
What is
Yeah.
this?
So I can bring that up at our next meet. We're actually having a planning meeting on Friday, so I'll bring it up.
That's a good point, and it's one of the ways that we do look at data. So just to point out that sometimes you're looking at, we did that, especially, like, I can remember several years ago with reading, why boys versus girls and that whole thing. So it's a very, very relevant conversation, and exactly the kind of thing that the state is hoping that we're investigating and looking into by looking at these reports. So that's exactly what they want us to be doing.
Thank you, Veronica. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, one question. I know you said that we are averaging $800 less than the average for per pupil
State.
expenditure. Where does that rank us?
I don't know that right now, but when you get all of that, that's like one of the pages in that, and that has to be updated annually. So I don't really know where that stands right now, but in your board packet with the budget, you'll have.
Yeah, James, it'll be part of the budget submission. You'll see that as part of the budget package.
Thank you.
Yep.
I-
Angela?
Super quick question. Is the chronic, no, this is really quick. Is the chronic absenteeism, is that based on excused and unexcused absences, or just unexcused absences?
It's a state definition, so once you hit that threshold of, I think is it 9 or is it, for chronic, I think it's 10% of the school year, so I think it's 18 or something like that.
It
So
says so 18 days, 10%
18
of the school
days,
year.
it is for the chronic absenteeism, and it really doesn't matter whether it's excused or unexcused, it's equally applied. It's a hard cutoff of the 18 days.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all. Thanks, Veronica. Next item on the agenda, Kath?
Okay. So professional appointments, resignations, retirements. There are 2 professional appointments, 2 resignations listed in this meeting's report.
Okay. And then next item, 7D, deeper learning updates.
So every board meeting, you'll receive some updates from each of our schools. And in this deeper learning update, we have information about FHS, the Introduction to Allied Health Professionals and Research classes, learning experiences at FHS. It's really exciting. IAR shared information about South Asian Day events and learning experiences with their podcast challenge and partnership with East Farms related to Telebration. So we love that IAR is visiting East Farms. They're right across the street, so it's really perfect for that partnership to grow. Our K-6 elementary school shared highly engaging learning experiences in science and social studies, writing for authentic audiences as empowered learners, reading detectives, disciplined thinking and math, homecoming week, that was at West District, and the importance of feedback in writing. So you can look through those updates, really exciting items. Often these items make their way to our district newsletter that goes out to all residents, and our communication committee met, and we are working on that community newsletter right now.
And again, for the new members, this is a part of our agenda, or part of our package that you'll get with every agenda, where you get a sense of what's going on in the schools. Okay, so if you're not, you're not necessarily in touch with what's going on in one of the other schools in the district, you can kind of get a flavor of what's happening that particular week or a couple of weeks prior to the meeting. So it's a good place to kind of educate yourself on what's happening district-wide. Okay, next, item 8. Scott Hurwitz.
All right, so good to see everybody. Many of you have been to the board meetings, and at this part of the agenda, I'll just give a brief update on what the trends are. Later in the agenda, we'll do the actual financial report for the previous month, or the way we're trending, depending when the insurance numbers come in. We'll do December tonight, and then we'll be all caught up because we have 2 meetings in January. So hopefully we'll have all those insurance numbers for December as well, and then be caught up. But I just wanted to give a couple updates right now. One relates to the HVAC grant. I've been keeping the board apprised of the statewide HVAC grant. We're in round 2 of that this year. I want to thank Sam Kilpatrick, who will present later as well. Sam, has worked really hard to once again submit the grant to the state that was due right after the holidays and before the new year. You'll hear, and this is kind of a precursor to the capital budget that that you already had a chance to review, and that we'll present a little bit later and then discuss again in February. So in our capital budget, you'll notice that the proposal calls for funding for the planning phase of K4 HVAC. One of the items that we learned about last year in our first round and has not changed this round, although we did offer feedback on that among other districts as well, is that you are required. It doesn't mean like we're still in it, and we did ask the state as we applied again this year, but they tend to favor districts, and within their guidelines as well, they want to see proof of funding as a part of that. So you do get reimbursement on the project, but they want to know that there is committed funding to the project before they select your project. And so, that'll be something we continue to talk about through the capital process this year, but it will likely result at some point, if this continues to move forward, in a referendum that would be off-cycle. Based on the grant is due in December, then you get a year. I think the other caveat is you get 1 year to complete the project after you're approved. I don't know when the approvals will come out. Last year it was going to be in January, then February, and I think it was late February, early March. But then you get a calendar year to complete it. And so I just share that, again, I appreciate Sam and all of his work to prepare. We're continuing, and we're hoping that, even as we move through the capital phase with planning, which is it's also reimbursable once you get approved. But that will help us get a really good target on what the price will be, and if and when the time comes, be ready to launch into that. So I just wanted to share, really, the main update is that we applied for the grant, but I wanted to give you some of the caveats around the grant as well. In addition, the other, one of the other big projects we're working on right now is our transportation RFP. I've been keeping the board apprised of that since, I think, late August, early September, in terms of where we've been. So as many of you already know, we had 6 vendors, which again is remarkably strong turnout. Done a lot of reference checks and phone calls in the last weeks, and keep getting, well, how many are interested? And I keep saying we had 6, and people are mostly surprised with that. But again, I think it speaks to the interest in our community, and the work that our team has done. I want to thank Matt Ross, Sam Kilpatrick, Beth Haber, our business manager, have really been a strong part of that. Andrea has been very helpful, and looking forward to continuing to work through the process here. Tomorrow, we will be interviewing 4 vendors tomorrow, 4 qualified vendors tomorrow. Those 4 vendors are M&J Bus Company, DACO, First Student, and Specialty Transportation. So we'll hold those interviews tomorrow, and our hope is that in the months ahead that we will then select a vendor to enter into negotiations with, and then have the board present to the board. As you'll see in the budget process, it is a large expenditure. We've had a lot of discussion around that and the impact on the budget that this shift could have, but also the potential to continue in the spirit of continuous improvement in our district. And so we're looking forward to continuing on that process. But we will keep you updated, but that is our next step, and that's tomorrow. Okay? And then in all of our other free time, amongst other things, we've been working on the budget. We're really looking forward to the February budget workshop. We are officially in budget season, with Matt kicking us off tonight with his presentation and the capital budget. As we get to it later, you'll see that last year, as I've mentioned before, we were forced to reduce quite substantially, and we're seeing that impact this year. In particular, you'll see some areas that either we're projecting overages in, or we're already in that position. One example would be supplies, and then special education costs continue to escalate, both on the transportation side and the tuition side. So I think you'll see that, but these are the types of things that we're hoping to present and share our strategies on when we get to that February Saturday workshop on the 3rd. Right. So those are the big highlights. Are there any questions?
Just a quick question. So you said there were 6, this for the transportation RFQ, or RFP, excuse me. There were 6 vendors, but you're interviewing 4?
That's correct.
So, will there be interviews for other 2, or no?
There will not. We don't expect to do that. So what we did is internally, we looked at the price proposals, we looked at the bids that were put together, and then we took a group that we thought would meet that point, and then we started to do reference checks as well as
so
that.
Those are the
as
4
that
that
next,
have moved on.
Correct.
Okay.
As that next step.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott, I have a quick question on the HVAC things at the elementary school.
Yes.
You mentioned the grants. So would the grants cover the full cost? Like, are we going after these MEP projects because of the grant money specifically, and how much of the grant money covers the cost of the overall project?
The grant,
anticipation.
it depends on your district. We're somewhere in the 20 to 30% range is the projection there, but other districts get 90 or higher depending on the district. DAS has a formula for that, and we've highlighted this as a need. It's a part of our K-12 facilities study as well, so it's not. But the grant is certainly is certainly enticing that money is available, which had previously not been available. It's also its own bucket of projects versus, school construction grant projects. We're hopeful that one day, I think across the state, HVAC projects will just become part of school construction projects. At this juncture, it is not. There was legislation this year as well. One thing we're keeping an eye on and looking for clarity on is there's also the projection for standards around adequate temperatures in school buildings. That those standards have not yet been released, but these are all things that we're also paying attention to right now.
So the K through 12 facilities report that you mentioned, is that in here? Did I miss, is that available? Like, can we see that or no?
It's
Yes,
on-
that's
on our
available.
website.
It's on
That's
our-
It's
available on
called
the
a
website.
prior report. The prior
No,
report.
no,
Well, 'cause-
these are that was a vendor who did it, but it's just our K-8 facility reports because FHS had a separate facility report that prompted the FHS building project. And then after we did that, we saw the need for a K-8 to have both short and long-term planning. We moved away from saying Fryer just
Right.
because it was a vendor.
Right.
But it highlights all the projects that need to get done in each one of our schools. And it's across a bunch of different areas. But we also, it did not include roofs. So we have a roof report that gives us dates of every roof that, when it should be replaced. Westwoods, you'll see in Capitol, is up for a roof replacement. And then we have the K-8 facility reports, which it's online under facilities in our website. And you can look through those reports. Every school has a report. It includes programmatic improvements. So when you see the Capitol today, that Capitol report, you're going to see 7 years. And all of those 7 years are either from our roof project, our roof plan, our K-8 facility reports. It could also be from our security review because we also every 10 years do a security review. And then the last bucket is our custodians and principals know our facilities the best. And they live in them every day. And our faculty, staff, students, families. So we elicit their feedback because there could be something that K-8 didn't pick up, the security didn't pick up, you know what I mean? Like the roof project thing or the roof plan, those things are done in a moment in time. But the ones who live in our schools every day also contribute to our capital. So with all those 4 items, that's how we really create our 7-year capital plan.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll look on the website for the K through 8 assessment. I guess when Bill mentioned the Fryer report, I was just trying to reconcile, because I know in the Fryer report, I thought that all the elementary school MEP equipment was given a lifespan of about 11 to 16 years with and we allotted a certain amount of money per year for all the elementary schools combined. And don't get me wrong, as a mom, I was actually thinking about it. I think I have more elementary school age children as a member of the board than all 8 of you combined. So I am as a mom, I totally get it. My kids are coming off the bus sweating too. I understand it, but I'm just trying to reconcile from the Fryer report, which seemed like the MEP equipment was in 11 to 15 year lifespan, and we haven't, I think that was done in 2018 if I'm correct. I'm just curious where this MEP equipment, this seems like a big gap between that and a $15 million equipment that needs repair between those two timings, if that makes sense.
Sure, and I'd be happy to, I don't know if we should wait till we get to the capital improvement
Let's do
project
that.
as well.
Let's move on to the budget and the agenda. We'll have them come back.
Yep, that
Yeah,
works.
then the last thing I'll add, just in terms of an update, we did have surplus cafeteria funds. I think I reported to the board earlier this year as well. So there will be air conditioning going in all K4 cafeterias as large cooling spaces. They'll also, there's limitations on what you can use the excess surplus funding for National School Lunch Program. However, we did write a waiver to the state for that. We've done several repairs on cooling equipment in the kitchens as well. It also, we believe, adds to the comfort of those large spaces in those elementary schools. So that's a project that's supported by excess funds, and those will be being completed throughout the school year this year and into the summer as well. But we'll get back to, when we get to the capital report, we can talk more about that.
Which will be in 2 seconds. All right, item 9 on the agenda, new business, major projects and capital improvement budget. Scott?
All right, I'd like to invite Sam and Matt up as well. I know Matt's going to drive and Sam's going to join us.
And just to start off, I'd just say major projects are in the operating budget, and capital is our capital improvement budget, which is the town's budget, which, we work with the town manager on. But major projects is something that you'll see in the operating budget. The board still, before it goes to the town manager, you approve the capital improvement, but they are two different places that the funding comes from.
So, good evening. I'm Sam Kilpatrick. I'm Director of School Facilities, for those of you who I haven't met yet. Tonight I'm going to take you through some slides, school by school, that's going to describe to you the projects included in our $174,834 total major improvements budget request. So I'm mindful of the full agenda, so Matt, try to keep up with me. I'll be brief. And if we have questions at the end and you want to go back in more detail about any of the projects, that would be great. The coming summer is going to be extremely busy, as I'm sure you're aware. So as we put together these projects, we're very mindful about what we're actually going to be able to implement. So you'll see that largely we tried to avoid areas that could be used for programmatic summer program throughout the summer. And then also you'll see kind of a recurring theme of continuation of phased projects. So starting with Irving Robbins, our request for the projects listed here is $18,084. And the other thing to mention here is you'll notice as well the stars on these slides, they indicate items that are either from the K through 8 facility review and or are a safety or security concern. So first up, this is a slide that I've actually used 2 years running now. It's a project that we've done throughout the district, and it's been a great success. Tile floors over time, the grout loses its sealer. Actually, the finish on the tile can lose its finish. So Santa Glaze has a proprietary system where they restore that to its original, and that helps us also to keep up with those tile floors over time from a custodial perspective as well. To the left here, you'll see some long, narrow windows, which are in classrooms facing the front parking lot at Irving Robbins. They don't have blinds at this point, and that was requested to add blinds to those windows for lockdown procedures there. And to the right is a garage door, which this project, we're looking to raise the head level of that door so that we can actually fit our tractor inside of that storage area there to help, when our custodians arrive in a snowstorm, it'd be great if they don't have to clear the tractor first. So. Next is Westwoods. So this is one project there for $15,000, and that's to add card swipe entry at the rear of the building there at an SLC wing. Last year we added 2 card swipes at side entries. This would be the first one at the lower rear side of the building. At East Farms, we have 1 piece of equipment and 2 projects totaling $58,000. And those are a continuation of a phased project, as I mentioned before. So these are suspended ceilings within classrooms. Last year we did 8 classrooms. This year we anticipate being able to do 4 classrooms. So we'd replace the ceiling grid and also replace the pendant lighting you see on the left with LED panel lighting like you see on the right. And in tandem with that, we're going to look to start a new phase project for replacement of cabinetry within the classrooms as well. So the cabinetry you see there pictured on the left is likely original to the 1964 building. And you can see on the right there that the plywood on the doors and drawer fronts is delaminating. So we're going to look to replace the cabinetry and countertops in those 4 classrooms where we do the ceilings this summer. And next we have Union School. The project request is $53,100. And that includes basketball hoops at the Union Gymnasium. The PTO had planned to replace those basketball hoops there, but hadn't realized that the support structure for those hoops also needed to be replaced in order to be able to do that. with a heavier backboard and hoop. So we're looking to take that on with them within the major improvements budget, replacing both of the hoops there. In the faculty room at Union, the work included is the removal of that floor-mounted cabinet to the left. Along with that, that's going to leave a big gap in the flooring there, so we'd be redoing the flooring as well. And then to the right is the kitchenette area within that faculty room, and so we'd be looking to replace the cabinetry and countertop there as well. So in the main office, during the security vestibule project a few years ago, we had anticipated being able to address reconfiguration of that office as well. But in order to maintain budget, we had to value engineer that work out. This allocation that we have in here is basically to support a future reconfiguration. So you can see walls tend to get cluttered with conduit and different pieces of equipment, which really limits your flexibility there. So we're looking to redo a lot of that, what you see there on the walls there, to support a future reconfiguration of the furniture in order to support the logistics of the office. At Noah Wallace, we have 3 projects and a piece of custodial equipment totaling $19,450. The custodial equipment is a ride-on vacuum. So currently the vacuuming at Noah Wallace is all done by backpack vacuum. There's a lot of carpet at Noah Wallace, especially large areas like you see here in the corridors. The ride-on vacuum would allow us to do that work a lot more efficiently. And this is also the first in a phased project that we're looking to replace blinds and screens at the Noah Wallace classroom windows. And similar to projects we did at East Farms, Irving Robbins, and West District last year, we're looking to replace the gymnasium lighting with LED lighting there. The last school we have is West District, and 2 continuations of phase projects totaling $11,200 there, including these bulletin boards were replaced over the summer. We're looking to continue that replacement throughout the corridors of West District. And for several years, we've been, in a phased manner, replacing the exterior doors at West District School, so we're looking to do 2 more of those doors this summer. In total, as I said, the 24-25 major improvements budget request is $174,834. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have one quick question. At East Farms, what is a Clark Boost machine?
A Clark Boost machine acts as a floor machine. It acts as a floor machine like other floor machines, but it also, because it has a rectangular pad, it's also useful in actually stripping wax in the summers as well. So it's just a little...
So that shiny floor that goes in the middle to clean that up?
Yes, anything that we have VCT and we apply wax to, it helps to strip the wax as well as clean the floors. It's used all year round, but that's the added benefit as opposed to a normal floor machine.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Again, we're going to have a conversation on this. We're going to talk about this again in February at the during our budget session, but this is an opportunity for you to see what's happening, what Sam's thinking we need well in advance.
And we always 3-hole punch, so you could put it in your budget book.
Yes, save this.
For the future.
Save it, yes, definitely save it. Because we're not printing it out again. Okay, thanks, Sam. That was a great presentation. Thanks.
All right, we'll slide right into capital, yes. So you already had a chance to, I believe, review the recording of the capital. So, we're here to answer questions. We can certainly slide back into the HVAC grant question, but, want to open it up to any other questions or comments as well. I think, Kathy, thank you for kind of laying the groundwork for the rationales for, what's driving the decision-making in capital. This is due to the town, in the town manager's office in early February.
Any questions?
I have just a quick question on the Westwoods rewire. Is that in the gymnasium for? What's the rewire for?
So we've been doing a. It's on.
We hear you.
We've been doing a phased approach to rewiring data networks at all of our schools. We've started with the K-4 schools, and Westwoods is next in line. So it's going to be a phased approach because of the summer usage. My hope is to possibly achieve the main office area this summer. There's no way I'll be able to get to any of the classroom areas this summer. The goal would be next summer, 2025, to do part of the building.
Okay.
It's well overdue. I harp on this. When I got here in 2013 and walked into the network closets in the classrooms, and none of the data ports were labeled in either location, and we go to trace out something that's broken, it's very difficult.
I just had a visual. It's like spaghetti and diplomatic. Thank you, Matt.
I just had,
Angela, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do want to follow back up with the MEP stuff, but also in the IAR gym, am I just conceptually thinking of this wrong? I know they have an auditorium, and I know that, like, this, it's saying this upgrade is for assemblies, but, like, to me, I'm thinking if you have an assembly at IAR, you're in the auditorium. Why would you be in the gym?
We ran into that this year. The 7th grade class is too large. They don't fit in the auditorium. So we've been hosting all the assemblies in the gymnasium. And we do a lot of events, concerts, graduation if we can't do it outside, or promotion occurs. Promotion typically would occur in the gymnasium as well. So this equipment does support that versus having to set up and break down each time.
So the gym, the auditorium capacity is what? I mean, you don't have to, I'm just saying, so there's literally
It's got to be less than 350 because I think the 7th grade class is currently sitting at about 350.
Okay.
Let's assume we have all the chairs working.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also
Which I think they are at this point.
They are,
They are
right,
now.
okay.
Yeah.
They are.
There was a period of time when the chairs were.
That was a
So
project.
neither location can support both the 7th and 8th grade together at one time, neither of those locations?
No.
No, the gym, yes.
The gym could probably fit with chairs on the floor. You probably
I
could
mean,
fit all of the
I've
student
seen
body in there.
assemblies where
Yeah.
all the students are.
But we can't even fit the 7th grade class in the auditorium for just a 7th grade assembly, so we're doing it in the gymnasium. And that's what brought this forward as kind of, okay, we need to look at this a little more closely.
So this is a stupid question, but are we, or not a stupid question, but are we like thinking about, I mean, that auditorium, that's a large space then that seems to be underutilized in that school building then? Like, what are we using that space for on a, I mean, should that space be repurposed then for something? I don't know what, it's an auditorium, but it seems like no one fits there, but that's a huge space that's not getting access, and now we're asking for, you know, more money in the gym, which understandably, I mean, that's a great explanation, but I'm just thinking about it logically, like for this, all this space being underutilized now.
Right. So we definitely use it sometimes for classroom space for our music program. We do have musicals, drama that we utilize the auditorium for, and concerts. So all of those, it is utilized probably similarly to FHS auditorium and other places. Sometimes we just run out of classroom space and we have to use our stage area. But I do know that they've had programming in there, so when students are presenting, they'll present in the auditorium. It's just more, it is a smaller space, so it's a lot easier for students to present there to a bit of a larger audience than maybe just their classroom, and then they have the whole setup for that. So I know, Kim, you'll think of many different projects that we do there where students actually present. But I've been in there while, you know, I think the Paideia, you know, they'll do it. Yeah. And yeah, medical moment. That's it. I couldn't remember it right away. Medical moment.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
James, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on the Westwoods roof project. What percentage is that going to be reimbursed? Do we know that yet?
So that roofs are reimbursable through the state of Connecticut Office of School Construction Grants. So it would be our rate is, I believe, 29.75%.
Okay.
Is our rate on those.
And this is totally a rookie question, so bear with me for a second. Just how do the state reimbursements work? What's the time frame for that payment? And that payment is not factored into what the request is for the roof project, correct?
You have to ask for the total amount in a
Yeah.
referendum.
And then-
Because we're paying that.
Okay.
And then we submit funds for reimbursement. You know, usually in these smaller projects, it's at the end of the project. FHS is such a large project that we submit pretty regularly and get reimbursement regularly to have cash on hand.
Right.
To continue construction before having to borrow more money. So that is a project that, for me, is new in that you can throughout the project, submit reimbursement, but on like a roof project, it would be most likely at the end of the project.
Yeah, because it would be probably a one month and a half of construction by the time you ask for reimbursement, you'd be done with the project. So you would wait until the end and ask for it all as one lump sum of that.
Okay. There's no opportunity for the state to say no, correct? It's reimbursable, so that's...
Careful. I have never seen
I'm
the
familiar
state
with, like,
say
how
no
the high school thing went down.
on one of their non-priority projects, such as a roof. That's always been something that is reimbursed.
Okay.
So again, like Kathy said, you ask for the whole amount, and then actually you can get prior approval usually on state construction projects, so we'd know that going in. And on the referendum, you can say that you have an anticipated reimbursement of, but you have to list the total amount on the referendum.
Thank you.
I have a question. Where are we in this 10-year security review?
In it right now.
Anticipating receiving the final draft version within a week or so.
Okay, so the question I had is, the recommendations you have for these capital projects, is there a possibility that any of the projects would make more sense to do it in conjunction with something that the security review might recommend? Sometimes it's more cost efficient to do certain things together. I mean, I'm not talking about putting off anything that's like an immediate safety concern, but I was just curious about the timing of the security review and requests for security.
Well, we worked pretty closely with the auditors as they went through each building. I don't think we're going to be surprised really about anything that comes up in the report that comes back to us. So really, whatever we have listed in security right now or safety has come from previous reviews, or working with the police department and our security team here in-house. So I don't think there's anything that we're presenting that's going to be different than what we're going to get in the assessment. What the assessment will help us do is kind of look out further. And what we did on our 7-year is we kind of bolstered up that security amount going forward, and that was in anticipation that we're going to relook at everything security related and come up with a bundle of projects that make sense going forward as well.
And typically, like our last review 10 years ago, it is a confidential report that's presented in an executive session, just because with security items, you don't want to put that out and show every security improvement we're planning. That is typically something, that we work with our police department, our consultant, and it's a document that, stays in-house, but it's presented to the board and typically the town council as well, because we want to secure those funds and make them aware of some of the areas that we have to improve upon. But we're constantly improving in all areas, but especially in that area. We have just an amazing partnership with our police department. We're very, very fortunate. It's something that's very unique to Farmington, for sure.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, you want a motion? Let's call a motion then. Do you have a formal motion?
I just wanted to circle back to HVAC. I apologize.
Sure, yeah, go.
If that's all right before we
Yeah, of
close it out.
course,
So
of course.
Sam can do a really good job of just talking through, when we originally started looking at this project, we were looking at air exchange, and the prices for that when they came in, I think when the conversation started before I moved into this role, there was a prediction at what it would cost. We got some actual cost estimates on air exchange that made our eyeballs a little larger than what we thought they would be. And so at the time, we had asked the follow-up question because that air exchange would also be supported through the state grant program as a project with ventilation. However, we then asked, well, what would the cost be? And then last year at the board, we shared the comparison between the costs for the members may remember, we shared the cost between air exchange and air conditioning. And Sam, I'll turn it over to you. You probably do a much more eloquent job of explaining the difference between the two. But I think the direction we received last year was given the nominal cost difference at the time between the two was to proceed with air conditioning. So we're kind of in year 2 of, we did not get it last year, and so we opted to go back and propose a similar project that we did last year. But Sam, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, so I think what will make sense, and I think a lot of schools will approach this way, is really just what Dr. Hurwitz was saying. It really is, there's air exchange, which would be brought by fresh air units on the roof, and then in addition to that, the air conditioning component would be VRF, and I'm looking around, we don't have that in here, but that's kind of like a mini split that you have in your home, but for commercial application. So in some ways, that can be split out at some point in the future, but that's the intent of what the design is. If I can back up, because you had asked about the facility review as well, and you had said a horizon listed on the facility review of, I think you said 10 to 12 years is what it had said on the equipment. That's for the equipment that exists there. So this project that we're proposing is to bring in new equipment. So our fresh air exchanges, our air exchanges in the classroom right now are being brought about by exhaust, basically, in those buildings. So you're exhausting air out of the building, and what is pulled in through windows or other areas is how the fresh air is being brought in. So the difference is that this is new equipment, so that 10 to 12 is on the equipment that we have, and this would be new equipment. So it's not, right, so it's not replacing equipment earlier than it would otherwise have been.
That makes sense. And just to clarify, and I think you just said it, so this is not full air conditioning. This is just to get it set up that then air conditioning could be brought in with it. Is that correct? Or what exactly is this equipment?
So the two parts.
Yep.
One is a makeup air unit that would sit on a roof and bring in filtered fresh air into the buildings, also dehumidified and slightly tempered. So that's what we were looking to do at first. With the cost estimate changes that happened, we also said last year, let's add VRF air conditioning into that. So that total amount that you said, the 16,
yep,
included air conditioning as well. But it's really two separate systems working together.
Okay, and that would be comprehensively for all 4 elementary schools. That price is air conditioning in all classrooms, like the whole school.
Classrooms was the focus. Classrooms and support spaces were the focus. And also when we talked about the temperature ranges, I believe there's 65 to 80 is the range that they're talking about. Natatoriums, gymnasiums, auditoriums likely will not be part of that, that stipulation.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Can you just talk a little bit general, just so the new members understand about how we do the roofing, how we roof, and how it's kind of like an ongoing, you're going to see this every year for as long as you serve on the board?
Yeah, so depending on the type of roof and the warranty that you get on the roof, a typical commercial cycle on a roof is 20 years. So Westwoods has a combination of both pitched roofs that have asphalt shingles, like most residential homes have. Also, they have flat roofs, which at Westwoods are called a built-up roof. So that's basically exactly what it sounds like, just built up layers of asphalt on top of a flat section of roof. Yeah, that picture there on the left shows you the edge of a built-up roof. The problem with that built-up roof is that over time, the top layers start to crack, dry out, crack, and when you start to get leaks, it's very difficult to track down where they're coming from because it goes down one layer, sneaks around, goes down another layer, sneaks around, so you can end up with a leak 30 feet away from where the intrusion actually is on the roof. So we don't have an excessive amount of that at Westwoods right now, but we're beyond 20 years with the roof, and we are starting to see evidence of that. Where that screwdriver is plunged in there is actually a hole in that roof where water could infiltrate. To the right, you see all the X's there. That's part of the shingle roof that I was talking about, and there are nails that are starting to actually protrude up through those shingles, so that's a way that you know that there's excessive wear on that roof as well. So again, we have obviously a lot of square foot of roof throughout the district, and so probably every other year, we have somebody come in and do a roof analysis. That's exactly where these pictures came from. They walk all our roofs and give us a sense of how they're holding up against their 20-year or 30-year warranty, whatever it is. That also helps us set up, you'll see in the operating budget, dollars set aside for preventative maintenance. So they'll give us a budgetary figure for our preventative maintenance for the next year. And then also that kind of lets us know how the roof is aging and whether we should push it up a year or two, or whether it's in good shape and we can go an extra year or two. Westwoods, actually, we had planned a year after what we're asking for this year. That's strictly kind of a programmatic thing that we were looking at, and that Matt mentioned how busy Westwoods is in the summer, has been for a long time. This summer is going to be no different. So just switching that with another project allows us to, while that roof project is going on, really utilize that time to address some other issues at Westwoods that need to be addressed and have been kind of pushed out.
I will say there will be an improvement at the number of roof replacements, because FHS was a sprawling building. This building we're in is a sprawling building, and we would just do section after section after section, and so we have a much different design over there now. So
True.
Hopefully that will help a bit.
And Irving Robbins had like 8 or 10 different parts too that was also, but that's been all pretty much done. So
Yeah.
that's all good news. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Just one quick question on,
Sure.
just real quick, on the roof. Will it impact being done this summer with the activities at Westwoods?
So it's not, so this is an allocation this year to be
Yep.
able to do it the following summer.
Next year, right.
Yes,
Well, then the following summer it might be an issue.
yes.
It's a great question, because we do have some significant
Right,
space
then we go to
restrictions for
This
project
summer.
work this summer, given the move at the high school, and
Yeah.
nothing will happen up here for the summer.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the 2024-2025 capital funding projects as presented?
Motion?
May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you all. All right, next on the agenda. It's not next on here. Why is it? Oh, here we are. Okay, item 9B, approval of the 2-year charge of the standing committees. This is a part of the role you have all taken on by being on the Board of Ed. We have 4 primary committees, and there are a number of other subcommittees or other type of things that we serve on and volunteer to do. And I'll have to review the charge, so just so you know, it's kind of officially. The Personnel Negotiations Committee, the general charge is to oversee all contracts and negotiations and plan for future negotiations, to make recommendations on collective bargaining contracts to the board as a whole, to develop and maintain relationships among the board and various bargaining groups, to review recommendations from the superintendent and recommend to the board salaries for non-bargaining group employees. The next one is the Policy Committee. The general charge is to develop and/or review policy upon the recommendation of the board and the board's attorney, to revise existing policy and eliminate, revise, and/or develop new policies as necessary, and then recommend actions to the board as a whole. Next committee is Curriculum Committee. And the general charge is to review and consider recommending for approval new courses and/or major revisions to courses and programs recommended by the superintendent or designee, and then recommendations to the full board for consideration. To review recommendations and monitor the implementation of recommendations presented by the assistant superintendent resulting from annual curriculum and program evaluation reports. To follow up curriculum-related policy issues as identified by the Board of Education. To review the annual curriculum budget as presented by the assistant superintendent. And lastly is the Communications Committee. And the charge there is to develop a regular cycle of outreach and communication to the Farmington community to increase awareness of the school district's priorities, challenges, and accomplishments. To develop and distribute two community newsletters per year, and to increase understanding of the budget process and priorities during the annual budget development. Every 2 years, this is brought to the board so that these committees can be charged by the board, and then they'll be empowered to do the work that we've just identified. So we need a motion to approve the Board of Education committee charges as presented.
Motion?
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the charges as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay. So what's going to happen, by the way, I'll talk about the board.
Yes,
Sure, I'll talk
yes.
about it. Okay, fair enough. Okay. All right, next up on the agenda is the review, item 9C, review of the 2024-25 school year calendar, first reading, and we'll take that with item D as well, review the 25-26 school year calendar, first reading. For those of you that are new, when we do stuff like this, there's required to have 2 readings. The first reading is kind of let the public know what we're doing, and then the second reading is actually what will bind the board to what we ultimately decide we want to do. So Kathy, with that being said, I'll turn this over to you, and I'll have you present.
Sure. So recently, we changed the policy regulations, the administrative regulations, to approve a 2-year calendars, not just a 1-year calendar, but 2-year calendars. This helps everyone to kind of plan ahead. I would say that although we try to plan ahead, there are all kinds of things that can happen, emergency situations that change our calendar. So if we have a closure due to inclement weather, we must always complete 180 days of school in Connecticut. That's a law in Connecticut. And they can't be made up on weekends or other things. Districts have asked for basically everything possible to make up a day. But you have to make up those days as full school days, or you can do early release days or half days, but you have to actually go to school 180 days in Connecticut. So we structure our calendar utilizing various laws that we are required, one of which is this 180-day requirement, which is Connecticut General Statute 10-16. There are also Connecticut General Statute 1 through 4, which talks about legal holidays in Connecticut. There are also state holidays, and a Connecticut Statute 214, which talks about holidays within December and January that are mandated off, which is that break during, the winter break, as well as Martin Luther King Day. Those are mandated. It's not a choice that any district can make. And then there is Connecticut Statute 10-66Q, which talks about a regional calendar. We do follow the Hartford regional calendar for the most part. I think that it has become very flexible over time, but we do try to keep in mind that our teachers, and we have residents who are teachers who teach in other districts, and we have our teachers who live in other communities. And we hope, as long as they're in this Hartford County area, that they'd have the same April vacation. That's ultimately what we try to achieve in the Hartford region. I can't, each region of the state, each county has a different group of school districts that made up their own uniform calendar. We're in Hartford County, so we follow that one for the most part. And so that's how we structure this. I will say the regulations in the policy really drive how we develop this budget, and that comes from the Board of Education and communities' input. So very recently in December, we always published the calendar in December, and because of the way our election cycle works, the board felt it was important to do it in January. So from now on, it will always be approved in January. And again, we do 2 years. So this is the 24-25 school year calendar. What I will note as far as something that's unique is in the regulations, it says we will start school the Monday before Labor Day. In this calendar, you'll see we're starting Tuesday, and that is because of the high school and our teachers needing an additional day to move in and unpack and get everything ready. They're moving into a brand new building. They will have, items that they've packed, and they will be unpacking. Obviously, a lot of the big items are all right, they'll be all set up for them, but we definitely feel like we need a buffer day for our faculty and staff, and probably just in general, we need a buffer day because this is a huge move in a very short period of time for us. And just to give you a little flavor of it, everything you see here, we've had our K-8 principals come through and mark what they would like. We've already know what will go. Yeah, it's been really fun. Like, here, pick what you'd like. And so we've done that. And then there are some items that are going to come with FHS over to the new building. So there's just a lot that's going on. And then there'll be FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment that are being delivered periodically to the high school. Once each section is done, that furniture goes into that section, then the next section. So that's going to be done over a period of time. And right in our last FHS building committee, we are moving on, the building committee approved a move management company. So we're going to start working with them. Our teachers really want to start working now. Think about how long we've been in this building and how much we have here that needs to either go to our K-8 buildings, go over to FHS, or we're not taking it with us, and what are we doing with that? So it's a lot, there's a lot going on right now, but we felt like just the one day would be helpful, the one additional day. So that's the only departure from what is in the regulations for developing the 24-25 calendar. When you get to 25-26, it's following the regulations as written.
Discussion? I'm open to hear. Whoever wants to go can go first.
I have a question, of course. So to me, the calendar is like a very comprehensive conversation, right? Like, so I love the regulations because it helps me understand like what things are set out that we have to follow. But it seems like from what you just said too, there are guidelines that, do we establish all of them, or are some of them state statutes? So in the example you just gave, it does say school will begin the Monday prior to Labor Day. How are we getting around that? So now we're starting on Tuesday. That
would be a local decision.
Okay.
Yeah, and also looking at that regional calendar and what was placed in that. So we try to be similar in this region, again, because we have faculty that live here but work in other places, or faculty that work here and live in other areas. So we're always trying to be pretty similar in our start dates and our vacations. We try to be. It's not perfect, but we try. There are, I had given some of those statutes that talk, like, that really do guide us, and we can't deviate from them. But there, are some discretionary decisions that the board has made over time that were values of the community that were then implemented.
That makes sense. I guess I'm interested in, because it seems like there's a lot of early release days, and it says here on number 8, a minimum of 8 early release days for the purpose of conducting teacher professional development workshops. In addition to the early release days, half days, there seems like there's also full days. So is there a state statute that requires X amount of days, or, because it seems like those days, when thinking of the calendar comprehensively, if we're looking at days off in the future, or what days we have to work with, like, is that something that we should be discussing in terms of those specific 8 early release days, as well as, like, I mean, we can pull it up, but there's the day after Columbus Day is another professional development day, and I know there's professional development days throughout just the regular school year too, when the kids are in class. So I don't know, to me, that seems like something that maybe we should discuss in terms of the magnitude of those days and what's being done on those days as opportunity to potentially, you know, just have flexibility on those days, I guess, is what my thought process is.
So not this board, but previous boards have made the decision about the 8 days. So those were discussions that happened at this table. And the board, many districts have every week, they have 1 day that they get out early for professional development. We have 8. So we have far less than most places. And I really believe that that was from feedback that we received from the board and our community around daycare and how it's challenging for our families. So we've kept it to 8. We have 2 full-day professional developments within our contract that we have more than that, but that are done during the school year. Now, in this case, in 24-25, one of them will be done that Monday. So we will not, but we have a presidential election. So we will not do a professional development day. Typically, we do it on on election day. But in a presidential election, it's very hard for us to park in our parking lots while we have such a huge turnout. So we try to be sensitive to the community, and so that Monday, instead of going to school, that will be the PD day that we typically would have done on election day. So we're trying to be really thoughtful about that. But, so next year you'll only have 1 full professional development day during the school year because we're utilizing 1 at the very beginning. But that's typically how, we've structured it. But again, the regulations and the policy, although there are state statutes and federal requirements that we follow, those are examples of decisions that the board made about requests that we were making, given I think one of the big drivers of the request for early release days is the annual increase of mandated training that we're given from the state. So many years ago, we had very little mandated training. Now, almost on a yearly basis, we're given additional mandated training for all faculty and staff that require hours and hours of professional development that we have no control over. It's the state requiring us to do it. And we just don't have enough time to provide that training, on top of the training that we want to provide to address achievement issues, wellness issue, whatever you're looking at in the profile and performance. We're always trying to do professional development to mitigate against areas of need. And so it's always a balancing act to try to get all this professional development done within the time we have. We have 185.5 days with our professional faculty. We have 181 days with our non-certified. So there are many, many, many state requirements that we're trying to follow in a very limited amount of time. So that's why the 8 days came into play many years ago.
So the 8 half days does cover the number of hours that are required by the state for professional development? Is it included?
Well, I would say it's a combination of, like I said, our priorities, our strategic plan, what the professional development that the principals have decided for each of the schools, combined with mandated training. It's a combination. It's just that I think the mandated training kind of brought us over the edge of being able to do that without early release days. And you'll pretty much see that every school district has some early release days for professional development. We just have far fewer than most.
So,
I had one quick question.
yeah, I had a question. I was going to ask the group, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just, So Kathy, we're looking at 2024, 2025, and then 25, 26. So next year in January, are we going to be looking at 25, 26 again, and then 26, 27?
I think 25, once you approve these, you're setting the next 2 years. Now, like I said before, there could be things, that come up this year, a facility issue, inclement weather. Things are always changing with the calendar, it's being adjusted, but for the most part, these calendars should remain the same, except for those, situations, emergency situations, for the next 2 years. I think it's up to, I always saw it as we would do 2 years, and then, so next year, we don't have to approve calendars.
Right.
It's every 2 years, you're approving 2 years' worth of calendars.
So you won't get a new batch until January of 26?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think that was the intention of the last board, was to kind of
Yeah.
allow, effectively let people run or campaign on whatever calendar issues they may have a concern with, and then, once they're seated, they can speak to it, as opposed to having a board that's kind of outgoing, not really have much of an input, going, past their a legacy past their time of service. I think that was the motivation for doing that. So I want to kind of talk a little bit, colleagues, about stuff that was presented in the last board session, and we heard no public comment tonight, but I feel like we have an obligation to at least discuss it. And it has to do with whether or not, and forgive me, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the holiday of Eid, thank you. It was brought up in public comment at several meetings last fall. I just want to put that out there and see if there's any willingness to have a discussion on that tonight or not. It's really up to the board and how you guys want to handle it. I'm open to conversation on it. We can ask superintendent to draft a calendar that might have a date on it for a possible second reading. I'll leave it to I really just want to put it out there, and then let's kind of have a conversation about it, or not, if you don't want to talk about it. Anyone?
I think it's worth the discussion, because I think it'll come back up. We may not have had public comment today,
Right.
but could just be the timing.
Right.
But also kind of taking a look at the calendar, and if there is, how could we look at some of these dates? Is there anywhere we can potentially
It's an excellent question.
address over the next 2 years? I think it's
Or
worth a
take a day away,
discussion.
or take
Or
another-
is there a group that needs to kind of come together to, like an ad hoc group, to look at the calendar and future requests? Because it's not going to be the last request we receive. So is there,
That's true.
a smaller subset that kind of looks at the calendars now and in the future?
Let me ask you a question, if I could. So let's say we do that, right? And let's say it's an ad hoc group or a task force, or whatever you want to call it. And that ad hoc group makes a recommendation to the board that the board collectively is uncomfortable with. That kind of, I understand why you're suggesting it that way, but in thinking about it, and we talked about this as well, if you may remember.
Yeah.
We talked about putting it back in policy, for example, right? And if it's in policy, it's still part of the board in some respects, I guess. But it does kind of hamstring, it puts the board in a tough spot, because if you have a group making, let's say they come back and the recommendation is we don't want any holidays, you know what I mean? That also puts the board in a difficult spot. So, while I understand the mindset behind that, and I think it's in a vacuum, a good idea, I think it really ultimately comes down to us. Like, we're going to have to make this decision collectively, right? So I don't pretend to have the correct answer for that. I really don't. Some of us were through a really challenging time when this was last discussed, adding holidays, taking holidays away. And so we're very mindful of that, and we want to be very sensitive to the community on that. With that being said, any other comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas? I'm open.
I have a comment.
Please, Sylvia.
I think the 2 years could be a good thing, because I think there's going to be, potential, a lot more information going down or more requests, and I think 2 years at least gives us time to think and talk.
Oh, I agree.
I don't think a quick decision is the right decision, because this is going to be affect a lot in the future.
Right.
Air conditioning, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
All these things we're
Right.
talking about that take time and money, and because it will add an extended school year. So I think taking our time and really thinking about what we're going to do in the future is a good idea, and getting more input from the community, to me, I think is good. So I think a 2-year at least allows us more time to think and talk about this.
And I'm not in disagreement with a 2-year. I absolutely am for a 2-year calendar, but just how are we addressing the additional requests that keep coming in?
Yeah, Eid is 2 days, correct? That
There's
would be that would be added to the calendar potentially?
You know, most districts, it's one day. It's
Okay.
not two. So recently, there was a survey done, and the districts that I know of are primarily taking the one that's during the school year, you know, that particular holiday. That's what I've seen anyway.
Because there's one in March, right? March and then
Yes,
June.
March 31st.
But they really change quite a bit
Yes.
over the years.
Right.
One's tied to Ramadan, I think, and,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to Bill's point about, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in.
Say, you're recognized, Beth.
It's going to be a bad example to the newborn.
So I'm going to cover Robert's rules in my, report to the board chair.
So you mentioned, Bill, the sensitivity to the community. I almost think there's an educational piece that could be a part of our discussion, because I'd like to hear from people who observe and celebrate certain holidays. We have such a diverse community. If we're making decisions about what warrants a school closure, and I know we struggled with criteria and all of that, and we will continue to struggle with it because there are no easy answers or formula for this. But if we don't hear from the community and don't hear about these actual days of observance, I think we're leaving ourselves short in being able to make good decisions.
That's well said.
For example.
That's well said.
Yeah, and Kathy, you said a little bit earlier, you know, we typically follow the Hartford regional calendar. What is their stance on?
On that, there are many different aspects to it. Talks about, you know, start date, days that the Hartford region will take off collectively. You had some flexibility. You could opt out of a few. You know, an example would be Veterans Day, you know, that type of thing. So there were some that the region agreed on, and that did include April vacation, that we would take it the second full week of April. And meaning that Monday would be the 1st of April. So that's they would consider that a full week. So you'll see that in this particular calendar, you'll see where that falls. It's really the 3rd week. Sometimes it's the 2nd, but, you know, next year, the second full week is the 3rd week of April.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I agree with Nadine and I agree with Beth. You know, we are going to continue to get requests to close the school. That's what it comes down to. It's to close the school. And I've spent hours thinking about it. I've done a lot of research on it, just seeing what other school districts have done throughout the country. And I don't think there's really any easy answer. But, you know, if we give ourselves the 2 years, you know, to look at, you know, get some community input on it. I mean, we might still be in the same place in 2 years, but I think we owe it to ourselves to hear what's important. It's not just about people that want to observe something that's important to them, a tradition or a holiday or a religious observance, but I also want to hear from people, you know, that are working people that have to take the day off, that don't have childcare, that don't have, you know, all that time off from work. You know, they can just take the day off. So I mean, I would be in support of some form of a group or task force, but limited, you know, with a focus.
My question, Kathy, if we were to draft 2 potential calendars for a second, can you do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do that. I need to say that we're a very small but powerful central office. We do have elementary ad hoc. We do have Farmington High School Building Committee. We have a lot going on. So, in whatever ways you want to think about this, just be aware that we've taken on, in some ways, a whole new job just with the FHS Building Committee, a whole other full-time job on top of our other responsibilities. So whenever we talk about an ad hoc or task force or any of those things or adding additional committees, we have to really think about, how this logistically will happen. In my opinion, the board, this is one of the few things that you really have decision-making on. It's your responsibility as a board to draft the calendar. And although there are state statutes, there is discretion as well. And to me, it does fall on the policy committee. So if the policy committee were to take on this project, I could see it living there and having times where you invite individual, community members in to talk about those things. I think that's probably, a good way to go in that you're definitely bringing in opinions from our community and all of that, but ultimately the Board of Education is who approves the budget and makes the decisions about the budget. Calendar. It's getting late. It's getting late.
How dare you?
I know.
First meeting and you're saying it's late.
Already the budget. I know.
We haven't even moved to extend yet.
Yeah, I thought we were going to be done before 9. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's
That's the goal.
Here's kind of how I feel about it. So when we did this in 2022, the first meeting when we talked about doing what we did in November of 22, no one was here. And we made the recommendations after that first reading, and within 3 weeks, the entire town was here. So I'm mindful of the fact that if we approve the calendar first reading as is, I'm fine with that. But I'm absolutely fine with that. But I would like the superintendent to come back with us at the second reading with a potential draft of another calendar. And what I would ask is that you find a day currently that's on the calendar that we would remove and then replace it with Eid, and just have it here for conversation if that's where things go. They may not go that way. I just want to have, I don't want to be in a spot, I mean, you remember very well.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we want to at least be prepared for that if that were to come to pass. I think what I've heard tonight is a board that's really struggling with a really important question for our community, and they want to make sure we do it right and thoughtful. And that's something this board has always done, and it's something I'm really proud to be a part of, is that we don't make rash decisions and we don't make decisions based on how we feel in a particular moment. We think things through. So I am mindful of concerns people may have in the community. I think the idea of having it sit in the policy committee with a more clear charge than we had last time. The policy committee, when this went back to policy last time, there really wasn't a clear charge there. But to talk about that in greater detail, especially with the new policy committee members that we'll be talking about shortly, there might be a way to handle it and have people come to speak to the policy committee. In other words, open it up to the public so that people can come, and it's a way that people can be heard and that members of the board can then make recommendations based on what they've seen and heard and that are accurate and not based on speculation, right? So that's kind of where I think I sit on it. So with that being said, what I think I would do, unless there's any more conversation on it, I would say is let's move to approve the two calendars as presented first reading with a request that the superintendent also draft calendars reflecting Eid on them with removing a day so that we have it just in case that's where we're going to have time to think about this over the next couple of weeks. I want to give us the opportunity to be flexible if that's where we think we may need to go at that point in time. Does that sound good? Okay, good. All right, so then all in favor to approve the calendar, 24-25 school year calendar presented as for first reading. We need a motion.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And then I need a motion to approve the 25-26 school year calendar as presented for a first reading.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, both motions have passed as first reading. Okay. Next item on the agenda, number 10. Scott, you're back up.
All right, told you I'd be back. So, in your packets, we have the monthly financials for the month of November. For our new members, we had a chance to go over the financials during our, or at least the financials, the structure of the financials during our orientation. And so I just wanted to highlight a few things, and then I'm certainly open to any questions that you have as well. As we've been looking at, kind of as we move through the months, we're starting to follow trends and patterns. We're still projecting and seeing overspending in several areas. To highlight a few, custodial supplies, other professional services, and transportation. Those have kind of been highlighted already. And then tuition would be one that I would highlight during the month of November as well. So we've made encumbrances based on trends that we're seeing. In that this month you'll also see that we've begun to apply projected revenues such as excess costs to offset the overages in these areas. In the insurance side, as you flip through the financials, we're continuing to track based on seasonal trends. Well, we mentioned last month that October was more costly than projected. We have a realized savings in comparison to the trend projected in November. And like I mentioned before, I expect to have our December costs for the next meeting. Our reserve is quite healthy at this point as well for insurance. And then finally, you have our grant funds there. ARP ESSER is continuing to be expended steadily, and we're on track. The closure for that is the end of September 2024. And it's possible, as we track over the next couple months, I think we'll be down to 200,000 or just short thereof. That we may end up, we could rewrite part of that and move some funding around. But right now, I think we're safe to continue to target where we are with that.
I'll ask for a motion in a second, then we can have a conversation. So I get a motion to approve the November 2023 financials as presented?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions for Scott? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is report of the board chair. We're almost there. Again, I want to thank you all for your unanimous support tonight, and I think I could say the same for Andrea. I'm sure she's grateful as well for the unanimous support. I want to start also by thanking Andrea and Angela for your kind words tonight. I appreciate it. It is my intent to be a good board chair and work hard with all of you to make sure that we can get good things done. A couple things. I want to express my honor to be entrusted with this position, and I want to express my gratitude to each of you who's expressed your support for me. There's a couple of things I want to emphasize tonight. There were some comments about politics, both in public comment and at the table. I want to be very clear. There will be no politics at this table. This board can only succeed if we are apolitical. That is not to say we will not have disagreements about many things, and that's healthy. But it's not going to be political. I won't allow it. I promise I will do my best to ensure that everyone at this table is heard and respected regardless of their viewpoint or whether I agree with you. Our board is about putting the students and families of Farmington first. Our role is to ensure that our students receive the highest education we can provide with the resources we are given. That has always been what we are about, and that is not going to change anytime soon. I mentioned a little earlier about Robert's rules. I would ask you to familiarize yourselves with them. There are 4 new members on the board, and working collaboratively and making sure that we get our work done in a timely fashion requires some understanding of the Robert's rules. Robert's rules is intended to provide basic rules and guardrails to ensure that everyone is heard and respected. And I believe everyone's got a copy of the abridged version, Kathy? Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to quiz anybody about it, I promise that. There'll be no quizzes. There'll be no assessments. Respect and decorum are everything. We will be civil and respectful to each other, and that includes being respectful for each other's times. I come from a time when board meetings would go until 1 a.m. That is not going to happen. I promise to be mindful that we all have responsibilities come Tuesday morning. With respect to the budget, it's the most important thing that we do. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and there's a massively steep learning curve in how we do our budget. Be mindful that we do not set a budget. Our superintendent, district leadership committee, council, facilities and technology teams put forth what they believe they will need to deliver public education to the town of Farmington at the level our students and families are accustomed to. We submit a recommended budget to the town. However, it is for the town council to accept, reject, or modify those recommendations. Accordingly, the budget process does not just involve a few meetings in February. Rather, we are engaged in this process all the way through March when the council renders a final decision on what our budget will be and what will be presented to the town in referendum in May. Now, I mentioned something about committees. Each of you is going to be sent an email, if it hasn't already been sent, where it's going to ask you to put your preferences down. I'll take a look at that, how you fill that form out. That's what it looks like. It's pretty self-explanatory. Fill it out and send it back to Dee, and then we'll take a look at it, and I hope to have the committee and liaison assignments announced at our next meeting. I will go through it and do the best I can. But I want you to also, just in terms of transparency, you should also note that traditionally seniority does play a factor in who is assigned to what committees, and I intend to follow that tradition. All right. Because of urgency with respect to time and respect to the bus contract, I know the superintendent began the process prior to everyone being seated to identifying, two of us identified individuals who we thought would be good fits for the chair of negotiations, for the negotiations committee. And Andrea Sabinski, Nadine Canto, and James Ratcliffe will be serving on negotiations. They have their first meeting tomorrow with the bus company. And Andrea will serve as our chair. Lastly, I promise I will be as transparent as I can be. I will be available to you all with the understanding that I have a business to run. But I will do my best to make sure you can get a hold of me and to be responsive to you. And with that, one other thing, we received an email last week from the Berlin Board of Education. There is a meeting on Wednesday, January 10th, at 6:30 p.m. at the BOE meeting room at 238 Kensington Road, Berlin. The Berlin Board of Education has scheduled a special meeting to discuss Connecticut General Statutes Section 10-14HH and 10-14II. This has to do with reading curriculum. You're more than welcome to attend that if you'd like. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. That's about it, right? Okay. With nothing further then, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I've been wanting to do this for 15 years.